Heights is being abandoned. Cancel Operation W.
Condon Heights is being abandoned. Cancel Operation W.
Condon Heights is being abandoned. Cancel Operation W.
Zone 3 stand by to take over. The next one may be right down our chimney.
Wouldn't I get tickets to a show on a night like this?
Poor Sally.
Oh, well. Maybe the show wouldn't be any good anyhow.
Seem to be here. Slightly the worse for wear, but we're still here.
Edmonton speaking.
This is Palmer. And we're still in business. Huh? 15 minutes, everybody. Hey, now, that blast must have had a dynamite base. Felt like the real thing.
The old realistic touch, Jim.
Yeah?
And speaking of the real thing, I'd like you to meet Mr. Watkins, Director of Civil Defense in our city.
Hi. Congratulations, Mr. Palmer, and all of you. You made the scene very real to me.
Well, thank you, sir. I only hope we can make it as real to everybody. You know, until we got into this movie, I don't think any of us realized the job that civil defense has to do.
Or how badly more volunteers are needed to do that job.
That's right, Mr. Chase. There's a critical need for volunteers in the danger ahead. I wish somehow we could make everybody believe that.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Shall we make ourselves comfortable, gentlemen?
Yeah, brother, I'm beat.
Well, that was very interesting. It certainly has been most interesting to us.
Mr. Watkins, do you really think enemy planes could get through to us?
Some of them will. And many of those that do will be carrying A-bombs. That's the picture. And let's hope it won't take a Pearl Harbor to wake us up. When the air warning sounds, it's too late to volunteer. The wail of the siren means enemy planes are on the way. Those will be moments of terror, and our people are going to need help. The kind of help a trained civil defense worker can give them. We need those civil defense volunteers now. I didn't mean to make a recruiting speech, but it still goes.
Well, Mr. Watkins, one part of our scene puzzled me. Now, in an actual bombing attack, could the telephone lines really hold out?
I think so. But let's ask Mr. Darnell, the communications officer on my staff.
There's no question about the telephone lines getting their bumps, Mr. Palmer. An A-bomb is no respecter of persons or companies. However, there are certain factors we feel will keep the telephone lines in continuous operation. One is the fact that most telephone wires are in underground cables, and where A-bombs were dropped in Japan, the damage to underground cables was little or nothing. This despite the almost complete destruction of everything on the surface.
What about the blockbuster type of bomb? It digs quite a hole.
It sure does. And there's no doubt of it destroying everything it hits, including underground telephone cables. But that kind of damage is localized. It's like this. You punch a hole in the spider web, and the rest of the web is still there. Punch a hole in the telephone cable network, and the rest of the network goes right on giving service. Take a look at the map on the wall. Now, you're all familiar with the size and dimensions of our city. The business area, the amusement center, the residential part, and so on. There are 4 telephone buildings that serve these various areas through a vast network of cables. Each building is, of course, in its own neighborhood, and naturally some distance from the others. So there is a degree of protection from any air attack in that the telephone buildings are widely scattered and not what you'd call easily identified targets. But maybe one of them does get an unlucky hit. Even if it's an A-bomb, that doesn't mean any of the other telephone buildings would be affected. each one is independent of the other. And with the special arrangements ordered by our local civil defense, at least 2 buildings will serve each essential location. Any city can arrange with a telephone company to provide this sort of insurance. Now, that doesn't mean we are minimizing the damage that might occur. Far from it. We are keenly aware of the terrific destruction resulting from a bomb attack. But as soon as the telephone men can get into the area, they'll find telephone cables that are still in serviceable condition. Connecting emergency telephones to these cables will be their #1 job. A job that in many cases will be difficult. But we are confident that if they can get in and connect new phones, that hard-hit area will be back in continuous service with the rest of the city.
Well, let's assume there's been an area completely destroyed, including telephones. And it's going to take a little time before those emergency phones can be installed. How are we going to get messages into and out of that area?
Wherever that happens, Mr. Palmer, we plan to use mobile telephones. You've probably seen them. But if not, it's a regular service the telephone company provides so that a car owner can talk from his car to any other telephone.
Then, too, there are other existing mobile radio services, such as the taxi cabs and amateur mobile radio cars that are instantly available for duty in any emergency.
But we've been talking about a city of 500,000 people. What about a smaller place where they have just 1 telephone building?
There are many such places, Mr. Patton, and where an enemy can pick his spot, any one of them is a possible target. Particularly those cities having large manufacturing plants turning out materials for the armed forces. And there is always the chance that a bomb hit might disable the 1 telephone building. I know of just such a city where, because of this possibility, the telephone company installed remotely controlled transfer relays that were apart from the telephone building and connected to underground cables. In case of emergency, these relays will connect city services together or transfer them to a telephone switchboard at some other location. For example, at police headquarters. Long-distance lines will also be connected through to this emergency switchboard. This will assure continuation of essential service.
Come to think of it, we have a bomb sequence in the script. The telephones are all through it. Here it is. Here's the sequence, Mr. Watkins.
Thank you, Miss Butler. Oh, yes, here it is. Scene 78. Dissolved to medium shot of ground observer post. An observer is scanning the sky.
A flight of bombers. Aircraft flash, Bratton, 7829.
Air defense, go ahead.
Many, multimotor.
Low. No delay. Able mine. 5. Black. North 2. Flying southeast.
Many multi-low. George, 121.
Able. Mike. 5354. Southeast. Many. Multi. Low.
Roger.
I have no flight plan on this one, Captain. Hello, jockey base. Scramble 4. Vector 270. Contact middleman. Climb to Angels 8. Over.
How are things, Colonel?
Middlemen has scrambled 4 to intercept. Track George 121. Operations?
This is Middleman. Fighters have made contact with 16 hostile bombers. Have scrambled 12 more fighters.
Roger. General, fighters made intercept. Track 121 is formation of 16 hostile bombers. Middleman has scrambled 12 more fighters.
Air defense warning. Condition red.
Air defense warning. Condition red.
Air defense warning, red. Repeat. Air defense warning, red.
Air defense warning red. Repeat. Air defense warning red. Stand by to acknowledge. Penston.
Penston, red.
Okay, Penston. Fairdale, red.
Fairdale, red.
Okay, Fairdale.
Fire's spreading. Send more Water Street blocked. Between 4th and 5th.
We're badly hit. Oh, I'd say about 10,000 casualties. Yes, we could use about everything the state can
100
spare.
people trapped in the Pyramid Hotel. All elevators down. The gas main is broken. All right.
Send them to the Pyramid Hotel. Yeah, Pyramid. And have them bring...
I've called the division offices. All telephone company construction and line trucks from cities A, B, and F will move into the disaster area at once.
Survivors? We counted 27 bodies. About half of them were children. Just one air warden in this building and they might have been saved. Just one. The guy that might have volunteered was too busy to something.
Can I bother you again?
Not at all. What number this time?
Linden 9826.
JW6 2849 calling Linden 9826.
These telephone company two-way radios sure come in handy, huh?
That's right. When I get the operator, I can reach any telephone I want. So here's your number.
Thanks. Give me the city desk.
Roughly, about the way we expect communications to serve the city civil defense in the event of an air raid. The telephone will handle a major part of the job. Not that we will neglect any of the existing communications. We'll use them all.
Such as the amateur radio operators?
Yes, indeed. The ham radio operators are going to be of tremendous help. And we're counting on the good job they've always done in emergencies. You see, we've got to know what's happening at any given point of the city and to keep in touch with it at any given time.
It adds up to this. We know what the communication system can do. And in that knowledge, I'm sure we can get from the telephone company whatever civil defense asks for, whether it's regular telephones or mobile radios or walkie-talkies.
It makes me wonder how the telephone company can do all this and at the same time manage to give regular telephone service.
It does make you wonder, especially when you realize that just about twice as many people have telephones in their homes as at the end of World War II. I think the telephone company is doing all that can be expected of it. And they have agreed with us that telephones for the military and for the essential civil defense services must come first. I rather think just about everybody would agree with that idea.
Of course they do. They know that the telephone people are well equipped for emergencies. They've been through floods, explosions, ice storms, hurricanes. These have dealt the telephone companies sudden and fearful blows.
I haven't the slightest doubt that every one of us will stand up to whatever may come. Of course, there will be that first sudden fear. There will be frightening incidents. We can expect such happenings. And our city departments and civil defense are prepared to handle them. There will be tragedy. The horror of losing those near and dear to us. We can expect that too. There will be the joy of finding ones who were lost. The prayers, the hopes, the despair, the thanks. All these we will know and will share. For this is a common effort. It's a job we all have to do. It's a responsibility we all must face, regardless of the sacrifice. We haven't wanted it. We've fought against its happening. But if it does come, we'll be ready for it. We will accept this challenge in the same faith and with the same courage Americans have always shown when the cause of human liberty is at stake.
On the set, everybody. Everybody on the set. On the set, everybody.
Your telephone company has prepared this motion picture to show the communications facilities that are available or can be made available to government agencies and civil defense authorities. Telephone people are proud of the part they are called upon to play in providing telephone service for the defense of our homes and liberties. They hope this film will also serve to express their tribute to the thousands of volunteer civil defense workers and the members of fire and other municipal departments who together are forging plans for our defense.
Harvey, this is Dave Taylor. I just wanted to remind you of the meeting tonight at the shelter. No, only those staff members who'd be directly involved with the initial entry of the shelter will be there. Well, there's you as operations deputy, Bill Sherman, our supply and maintenance chief, Mrs. Carter, our health and sanitation team leader, and Walter Miller, the new communications man. Joe Cook, our deputy for information and training, is sick and he can't make it. No, you don't have to bring anything, Harvey. We'll have clipboards and writing materials in the shelter for you, and you can make a few notes tonight. All right, fine. We'll see you at 7:30. Goodbye now. Mr. Robbins, this is Dave Taylor, the manager for your shelter. I sent you a letter about assisting Joe Cook with information and training. Well, Joe's sick, and I was wondering if you could make a meeting tonight. Oh, well, this won't be our only meeting, Mr. Robbins. The next one's in 2 weeks. How about coming over and meeting the rest of the staff then? All right, fine. Look, I'll check with you again in about 10 days. All right, goodbye. Oh, have a good trip. Right.
Oh, hi, Dave.
Hi, Harvey. Nice to see you. Planning or socializing?
A little of both.
Oh, hey, Mrs. Carter.
Hi.
Bill.
What's in the jug?
Oh, coffee for everybody.
Good.
Walt Miller not here yet?
Who's that, Walt Miller?
The young fellow works at the Circle Radio TV shop. He's our new communications man. Yeah, let's wait outside for him.
Say, Dave, I was thinking about entry. That's our subject for tonight. I ought to place a member of my security team right here in this doorway to keep an eye on what people are bringing along. And you'll have to be firm about what comes in. I take it that furniture and large boxes of personal effects will have to be left outside here.
That's right, Harvey. You can judge for yourself what's going to take up room and be a real nuisance in a crowded shelter and plan for it. If you can get rid of those things at the door, it'll be a lot easier than dragging them back outside later.
I thought of something else. Why don't you have your wife at the door, Harvey? She could give some help to the women, and she gets along pretty well with children. Make people feel better seeing her here.
It wouldn't hurt to have another woman familiar with staff activities to help out Mrs. Carter anyway.
I think Hazel would like to be included. I'll tell her when I get home.
Fine.
Give him my love.
I will.
Oh, hello, Walter.
Oh, I'm sorry I'm late, Mr. Taylor.
That's all right. I'd like you to meet Mrs. Carter, our health and sanitation team leader.
How are you, Miss Carter?
Harvey Johnson, operations deputy.
Oh, I know, Mr. Johnson.
Good. And Bill Sherman here in charge of supply and maintenance.
Well, good to know you.
I know you.
All right, let's get started, huh? Oh, this is the key to the door with a couple of extras. We'll give one to you, Harvey.
Thank you very
Bill,
much.
you get one, too. And we'll have to decide on another place to keep one in case any of us don't make it. All right, let's go inside.
Let me try mine, huh?
Be my guest.
Oh, thank you.
Walter, you want to join us at the table, please? All right. The things we're going to discuss on the areas you particular people represent. The rest of the staff isn't here. I thought tonight we should become generally acquainted with the shelter and with the supplies and equipment we'd be working with immediately upon entry. Also what our function should be at that time. As a matter of fact, that's the first important point. You know, any one of you may have to act as shelter manager.
Yes, we should all be capable of filling each other's jobs, just in case one of us doesn't get here.
That's it exactly, Harvey. Now, here is the organizational chart for our shelter. It shows our jobs and our relationship to each other. And this is the order we'd move up to fill any vacant spots in case any of us should fail to arrive. Here are some copies of that for you, which you may have. As an example, we should all know what medical supplies are available. If, for instance, Mrs. Carter doesn't arrive. Now, she happens to be a nurse, but we may have to find someone with first aid training from among the shelter occupants. Also, we could fill any of these slots by selecting people from the shelter.
I can teach everyone what they need to know about operating the radio.
Okay, Walter, that's what we're here for. But tonight I thought we'd just have a general kind of orientation. I don't want to make this too long, but I do want to be sure that each of us understands the other's job. All right, let's go through the shelter now and check out the various duties. I'd like you each to explain your own as you know them. First...
Oh, somebody's duty ought to be to get this place cleaned up, get these nails and crates out of here.
I'll take care of that.
Okay.
This is the administrative packet, which will be kept on the shelf here. The first one of us to arrive during an attack should immediately get this packet and follow the instructions inside. You'll find certain items which we've put in here. You know, stationery, tablets, pencils, pens, erasers, and so forth.
David, you've already got the registration form.
Yes, and this is important. The registration form should be filled in as quickly as possible by all the occupants. Here is a list of the various technical references we have in the shelter: medical, guide to shelter management, and other civil defense manuals. Our log journal, which will be kept by the administrative clerk, and 2 copies of the shelter operations plan, how we will operate and what we will do.
Dave, I think we should post the organization chart, the SOPs, and the staff duties, along with a map on the bulletin board.
That's a good idea, Harv. Let me make a note of it. Now, we've all seen the shelter already, but let's all walk through together now. Now, this door is the primary entrance and exit for the shelter itself. Just outside this door in the hallway, the radar monitors will check for contamination of personnel and equipment. Harvey, you'll have a member of the security team here to direct incoming occupants and keep count as we discussed outside, right? I'll try to be here or nearby myself.
Harvey, I've been thinking about strangers to the community who might find themselves here. Well, if you direct them to me or to some of us who live around here and already know each other, it would be a start toward cooperation and kind of making them feel welcome.
That's a very good idea.
Look, if anybody else has any other ideas, keep bringing them up as we go along. All right.
This is a special chest for valuables and any dangerous items that occupants may bring in upon arrival. Things such as pocket knives or weapons will be left here and a receipt will be issued. That is also part of the security job.
Keeping you pretty busy doing entry, huh, Harvey?
That's right.
Now, communications. As you see, we have a telephone and a small radio transmitter receiver. Walter?
Okay. This is a CB transceiver model S1050 with a frequency range of 26.956 megacycles to 22.255 megacycles, divided into 13 unique channels and utilizing 6 fixed crystal channels for transport. This is the power plug. This is the outlet. And you just plug it in here and then turn it on here. It'll also operate with batteries. Our first job when we get here should be to try to make contact with the control center, either by telephone or by radio. So somebody should be standing by in case I'm not here. We should try to contact control center immediately and let them know our situation.
Okay. Any questions?
Not for me.
We'll have complete practice and technical sessions later, Walter. Now, the telephone is our main line of communication. If it doesn't work, then the radio is our backup. All right, Bill, how about supply?
Well, over here we have containers of government food, health and medical supplies, according to the capacity of the shelter. Also some extras we put in there. We will have to get rid of those crates. Now, the first thing when you enter during an attack, you must check over these supplies. On the bulletin board will be an inventory of all the supplies and equipment in the shelter. Now, those must be checked over too. And the supply team will issue anything that's needed immediately for food, sanitation, or any of the extras I've mentioned. The medical supplies are Mrs. Carter's bailiwick.
Well, this is a standard medical kit, and it's more than adequate for handling the more common illnesses and injuries. Also, inside are booklets on the treatment and use of medicines. Now, the sanitation team will be responsible immediately for assigning people to keep this place clean and for putting into effect rules for sanitation and personal hygiene.
Another important point when the shelter is entered. Check power, water, sanitary facilities, and emergency items. Be sure that everything is working. Also check heating and ventilation. And this must all be done immediately in case we have to send someone outside the shelter to make repairs. I want to do it before fallout radiation arrives.
Of course, radiological monitoring and checking will take place right after entry. Now, Joe Cook isn't here tonight, so except for information, that just about sums up the various staff duties on entry. Why don't we go in and sit down and discuss it further? As a last thing tonight, I'd like to go over the initial duties of the shelter manager. As I said, any one of you may have to act in that capacity. The manager's primary duty is to coordinate all shelter activities and to make final decisions when necessary, not becoming so involved in every tiny detail in each case that he can't be objective. The manager should establish his authority immediately upon entry by introducing himself. And since he'll be one of the few persons who knows what to expect, he should display confidence and relative calmness.
Well, as we all should.
Then, as soon as possible, the manager should get the attention of the entire shelter group and speak to them, reassuring them of their safety from radiation as long as they remain within the shelter, and also what to expect while in here.
Well, the more the occupants know about the shelter and shelter living, the more confident they'll be.
Right, Harvey. So, one of our first duties is an orientation for the occupants to help them get settled and learn where everything is. Then I'll introduce each of you and explain your specific duty. I'll make it clear that our shelter offers us adequate protection. Our supplies and equipment are adequate, and they certainly should know this. Then we'll give them a briefing on our standing operating procedures, rules for safety and health, and a tentative daily schedule. The registration form should be filled in as quickly as possible by all the occupants. The administrative clerk will collect them and analyze them so that the occupants can be given responsibilities.
We'll also want them to start thinking about representatives to the advisory committee.
Then we'll make a firm daily schedule through discussions with the advisory committee and the entire shelter group. Now, we'll have a copy of this in the administrative packet for your reference. I hope you'll think about what we've talked about tonight and come up with some additional ideas. Especially develop in your own minds what you're going to do first upon entry. As a matter of fact, I think it'd be a good idea right now if you'd make some notes on your specific activities based on what we went through tonight. Now, first, remember the administrative pack with the standing operating procedures and the registration forms. Next, keep in mind security watch at the door. We want to be certain all the people get in and settled as quickly and calmly as possible. Also, Harvey, the safety chest for valuables and any dangerous items. Then, we have the telephone and Walt's radio set for communications, making contact with headquarters as soon as possible.
Although Mr. Sherman is in charge of supplies and facilities, remember that Mrs. Carter has to check all the medical supplies and the sanitation setup right away. We have to know that everything is in place and in working order.
I'm sure each one of you could do a creditable job as acting shelter manager, and I'm sure you'll cooperate with me or whomever takes my place. If I'm late, I'll simply take up where the acting shelter manager left off.
I think we're pretty well squared away for the first meeting, David.
David, is this supply list complete to date?
Yes, it is, Mrs. Carter. Oh, one more thing before you go. Here's a list of various items we might want the people to bring in if they care to. Things like blankets, extra food, and so forth. Why don't you all just take a copy? Okay, that just about wraps it up. We'll all meet here together with Mr. Robbins in 2 weeks at 7:30 on the 23rd. I'll give you a phone call on the Monday of that week just to remind you. Good night, Bill.
Good night, Dave.
Thanks for coming.
Good night,
So long,
David.
Harry.
So long,
Bye,
Dave.
bye-bye. Bye, Walter. See you again.
Thank you.
Dad, I'm finished.
Okay.
Me too. There's a new puzzle. Where is it?
Got my bookcase.
Oh, thanks, Daddy.
Kenny, let's have some news. It's about that time.
Come on, Dad.
You can watch that show some other time.
Okay.
Thanks.
But due to the sudden resolution of the problem and the relaxing of tensions, the Secretary General moved for an adjournment, and this was approved by the Council. The issue will be debated by the General Assembly. And now for the local news. With all eyes on the tense international situation last week, we interviewed this morning the local official who is perhaps the man most directly concerned. The Director for Civil Defense for the city, Mr. Stanley J. Packard. And here is that filmed report. Mr. Packard, did the international crisis affect your civil defense activities in any way?
Yes, many of our emergency civil defense activities were stepped up.
Does our continental defense system affect civil defense?
Of course. We learned some valuable lessons from last week's crisis, and we're incorporating them in our community planning.
Yes, sir, but was our local civil defense ready for any contingency?
Not as ready as we could be.
How about the general public?
It's a little hard to say. Were you ready?
Well, sir, I did remember that there was a shelter in the basement of my studio, if that's what you mean.
That's exactly what I mean. The fact that you know where a shelter is and how to get to it puts you way ahead of a great many people. I'm afraid many do not.
Do you think the recent crisis has made people think about it?
I certainly hope so. As a matter of fact, this would be a very good time for everyone to make sure he knows the alert and take cover warning signals, where the public shelters are located and how to get to them, and most especially, to review his own family preparedness plan. In other words, just what each member of his family is supposed to do in case of attack.
Thank you, Mr. Packard. That was Stanley J. Packard, Director of our local Office of Civil Defense. And by the way, do you know exactly what your family would do if an attack came? Say at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's a good question, isn't it?
It's a darn good question.
Mm-hmm, it is. Mommy. Okay.
I know what you'd do. You'd rush over to the grammar school to be with Janice.
How about you? You'd probably jump into the car and dash like a madman for home.
Janice, she'd probably run for home as fast as her legs could carry her.
Oh, no, I wouldn't. I'd go down in the basement in school like the teacher said.
Look, don't give me that stuff. Don't give me that.
All right. Do we really know what to do if the warning comes?
Of course, we'd all go down to the grammar school. It is the nearest shelter, isn't it?
Oh, great. You'd all come over with me.
That's fine if the warning came right now when we're all here. Suppose you were at the church at choir practice, or if you were at the shopping center, or with your bridge club.
Say we were up at the lake.
Oh, gee, Mommy, what if Kenny was out in a scout hike?
Fred, what's the point of all this?
No, you're right, honey. We need some answers. Do the kids know what to do if there is no warning, just a flash?
Of course they do. Janice, what did your teacher tell you?
Well, she told us to get under our desks and stay away from windows, and then we all go down the basement and stay there.
See, she knows.
Oh, that's okay, as far as it goes. But the bombs can fall so far away from here that we won't see any flash, or feel any concussion, or hear any sound except the warning siren. The danger will come a little later. Radioactive fallout.
Oh, yeah. Hey, that's the stuff that gives off the rays that can go right through you. And you don't even know about it until you get sick. Or even die.
Oh,
Now, cut that.
Well, it's true.
You're just trying to scare Janice.
Mom, can I take my milk and apple now?
Sure, honey.
Look.
All right. Look, let's do this. Let's go over what each of us would do, taking different days and different circumstances.
All right. But let's start first with Mr. Harum Scarum.
Who, me?
Mm-hmm.
I know what to do.
Oh, all right then. Tell us. Start with 10 o'clock tomorrow morning and give us a few other examples.
Okay. See, 10 o'clock tomorrow. Well, that's easy. I'd be in school. And I'd be just about finishing second period history. Now, if the warning came, we'd all go into the shelter in the basement. We've done it lots of times before. It only takes a few minutes.
Oh, well, that's easy. Janice even knows that.
Yes, that's right. But let's just say this happened when you were on your way to school. What would you do then?
All right. Let's say I heard the warning going to school or coming home after school. If the warning came then, I'd head for whichever was closest. But if nobody was home, I'd probably go to the school. In any case, I'd head for one or the other, and fast. Now, if I was somewhere else, farther from here, say over on Central Avenue with Bud, well, then I guess I'd look for shelter over there. I think I remember seeing a sign outside of Mitchell's department store. You know, when we had that practice drill last year? Sure, we'd want to come home if we could, but there might not be enough time. Another place I might be is over at the Diamond in Shelley Park. If the warning came then, I'd be closer to home than anywhere else. So I'd hop on my bike. I could make it home in 10 minutes. Well, that's what I'd do. Okay?
Okay, Kenny.
I don't know. Fred, I think we should all be together in a situation like that.
Well, listen, Edith, we'd be much better off to survive and get together afterwards. Besides, the marked shelters would give more protection than our basement.
I suppose so.
Janice? What if you were playing with Betty? Would you know what to do?
Sure I would.
What, honey?
Go into Betty's house
Yes?
and do what Betty's mother tells me.
You know I'd come and get you just as soon as I could, don't you?
Sure, I know you would. And then we'd all go to my school basement, if there was time. Don't worry about me, Daddy.
All right. Now, your turn.
Well, let's see. Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock? Tomorrow's Wednesday. First, I drive you to work, and I come home, and then I go to the supermarket. It would just be about 10 o'clock when I get there. I don't know if there's a shelter in the store. I doubt it. Besides, it's less than a mile from home, so even if I couldn't use the main roads and I had to take the side streets all the way, I think I could make it home in less than 10 minutes. And then I could go to the grammar school and be with Janice. Or if it were afternoon and I took the bus downtown to the shopping district and the warning came, well, the sensible thing would be to go into the shelter right there. If I knew the kids were safe in school, I think I could do it. There are a lot of other places I might be. Myrna Freeman's, Dorothy's. Or if it were Bridge Club Day, I could be at Ruth's house. One of them always drives me to where we're playing. So if the warning came, I couldn't very well ask one of them to take me home. They'd have their own families to worry about.
What would you do?
Well, I could walk to Kenny's High School.
Hey, I could come and put you on my bike.
We're on the handlebars.
Well, I could. Sure I could.
You just stay in school, and we know where you are.
Okay, your turn now, Fred.
Well, number one, if I were at the plant, well, they've got a perfectly good shelter right in the building. If I had the car with me, though, I'd want to come home.
No, I think you should stay at the plant.
Well, that'd be hard to do. I'd want to be sure that you and the kids were safe.
Well, that's what we're doing now, isn't it? Making sure?
Yeah, that's right. You know, there's a fellow on my bowling team, Joe McClellan. I drove him home after the game Saturday. Took me inside to show me something he'd built in his basement. It was a concrete block shelter in a corner to take advantage of the basement walls, and built it in his spare time. Stocked it pretty well, too. Folding cots and chairs, flashlights, spare batteries, portable radio, all kinds of canned food, containers filled with water, tools, first aid kit, the works. Even books for the kids. He lets them use it as a playroom as long as they keep their hands off the supplies. Made me wish we'd done something like that in our basement.
Well, I feel pretty safe. After all, the grammar school's only a few blocks away.
Yeah. If we could get there.
Well, why couldn't we?
There might not be enough time. Traffic might delay us. Now look, on a nice day when you've got plenty of time, it's a short walk to the grammar school. But with the sirens blowing, everyone on the move, every block could seem a mile long.
Oh, we'd make it easy.
Oh? What if we were delayed trying to cross Century Boulevard?
Why?
Because it's also Highway 61, that's why. The main eastbound road.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I never thought about Century either.
If for some reason we couldn't leave the house.
Yeah. Then what do we do?
Well, we could improve the protection right here in our own basement.
How?
Well, I've got all those gunny sacks in the garage. They could become sandbags. Kenny and I could half fill them with dirt from around your rose bushes.
Well, why half full?
Try carrying a full bag of dirt sometimes. Then we could use them to block the window wells.
But it sounds as if there wouldn't be enough time.
Well, I really ought to build a shelter like Joe McClellan's. I could get one of those civil defense manuals and see the best way.
The best way is to go to school.
You're probably right.
You remember Myrna Freeman?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's taking one of those courses on medical self-help.
That's that.
Well, first aid is what you do until the doctor comes. And medical self-help is what you do in case the doctor never comes. Well, we've talked out every situation.
Yeah, but next month we're going on vacation. What do we do then?
That's right. We'll be in a strange town with open country.
We use common sense. If we stay overnight in a hotel, we always notice where the fire exit is on our floor, don't we? Well, we should do the same with shelter signs. In the downtown area of any city, there'll be shelters in most of the large buildings. If you keep your eyes open for them, you can't miss them. And if we're out in the open country, some farms have shelter possibilities, like a root cellar or some sort of underground storage room. Something like an up-to-date dairy farm might have shelter potential too, where the buildings are made of concrete or cement block. And if we couldn't get to town, the things we normally carry in our car would help. Flashlight, tools, first aid kit, Kenny's transistor radio. And on weekend trips, we usually have some kind of food and a thermos of milk.
Dad, what if we were at Uncle Arnold's farm?
Well, Kenny, let's see. That apple storage of his has the makings of a good fallout shelter. If we had any warning at all, we could fix it up in plenty of time. If an attack comes, the important thing is that we have a plan. Wherever we are, together or alone.
Still, things are going to be pretty bad.
Oh, but not the end of the world. People are going to survive. And I think our chances now are darn good.
You know, Fred, I'm really awfully glad you made us have this talk.
Me too. Dad, you're on the ball.
Oh, that's okay, Kenny. I feel much better now. I really do.
So do I.
Now, each of us knows what to do. Just in case.
You know, Mom, maybe Janice would use her head and stay in school.
I don't know what everybody's worrying about. My teacher knows what to do, and so does Mama and Daddy and even Kenny. My goodness, grown-ups sure do worry.
A town in the United States. A town in the nuclear age. It's early evening. Two men sit in an office in the town hall. The mayor of the town, Sam Rice, and Civil Defense Director, Bill Logan.
I think we finally got something going here, Sam. There are still some bugs in it, but at least we're on the way.
Good. What have you got there?
Well, first of all, here's the revised disaster plan I've been working on.
Looks like you've been burning the midnight oil.
Burning it? I run clean dry of this stuff.
Oh.
Sam, one of the main problems we've got to work out is communications.
I thought we were in pretty good shape there.
We're going to need more communications equipment in the emergency operating center.
Well, how much do you figure it'll cost?
Here's a brochure on the unit I think we should have. I know, it's more money than we figured on spending. But communications is one of the most important parts of the whole civil defense system, and we don't have nearly enough.
Even with the federal government's matching funds program. This is going to cost a bundle.
Well, how much is emergency protection worth, Sam? What kind of a price tag do you put on the safety of our wives and kids?
You don't have to sell me. Remember, civil defense is my responsibility to start with. But the council, they think we're spending too much money already.
It's about time they realize that we've got to extend ourselves a little if we're ever going to get any kind of adequate emergency program in this town.
Bill Logan, former officer in the United States Army, now retired, and appointed by Mayor Rice as Civil Defense Director 1 year ago. A man with a difficult job. Emergency, protection against enemy attack, protection against natural disaster. When and if they occur, Bill wants his town to be ready with a well-organized emergency plan. A plan that could save lives and property. Many of the larger municipalities have full-time paid directors. Some civil defense directors serve voluntarily on a part-time basis. Bill Logan is a full-time man, but his workday is never long enough for all the things he has to do. Take today, for instance. 9 a.m., a meeting with Harry Coyle, in charge of shelter management instruction for the town. His problem? Not enough people are taking the shelter management course. Shelter management is one of the most important elements in today's civil defense system. Handling of large groups of people in disaster situations calls for special knowledge of many kinds. Measures against nuclear disaster, in particular, demand completely new techniques and approaches. It was at Civil Defense Director Logan's suggestion that Harry attended a federal civil defense shelter management instruction course so he could come back and teach others. At school, Harry was impressed with the amount of civil defense planning that had been written up for instruction purposes. The possibility of nuclear warfare in our time has produced a library of civil defense studies which anticipates, as far as possible, the nature of the nuclear threat and ways in which its devastating effects might be contained. But if Harry Coyle is going to use this knowledge to good advantage, he's got to have people to teach. Many who are willing to learn say they just can't take the time. It's an old story, and Bill has heard it many times since he became the town's civil defense director. People always had so much to do. Bill has an idea. Maybe if they were to arrange a public presentation, work up a program that would make the people realize how important civil defense was to each of them, they might create more support for civil defense activities. Bill will look into it, just as he will follow up on many other matters during the day. 10 a.m., a visit to the owner of an office building on Main Street to see about the space to which shelter provisions are to be delivered.
Well, suppose we store them over here in these closets. That way I won't have to move any of my storage supplies.
That's no good, Mr. Lorenz. There's not enough room there. What about this section off the lower main corridor?
Can't do it. We use that for temporary rentals. You'd be surprised how many people want space for just a few months.
Isn't there any room at all off that corridor you could make available for the shelter provisions?
I don't see where. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm for civil defense 100%, but I got to think of my business.
Well, now, wait a minute. There, at the other end of the corridor, you've got some space marked development. What's that for?
Well, it's not being used right now. We're keeping that open for future plans. Hey, that's an idea. I could let you put the shelter provisions right in here. After all, civil defense is future plans, isn't it?
I'm glad you see it that way, Mr. Lorenz.
11:15 a.m. A phone call to Herman Bayless, a local mover. Arrangements have to be made to pick up the shelter provisions from the federal warehouse and deliver them to Mr. Lorenz's building. Pickup and delivery from warehouse to community shelter, where the provisions will be stored
is the responsibility of the local government. Mr. Bayless is offering the use of one of his trucks without charge, a fact for which Director Logan, ever aware of his limited budget, is very grateful. "11:45 a.m. A visit from Bob Martinson, in charge of radiological training. Radiation detection instruments supplied by the federal government to local communities have arrived. Bob has checked out the equipment and reports it in good order. He also tells Bill that there has been a good turnout for radiological defense classes. 12 noon, a speaking engagement at a luncheon of a local civic group. Often the civil defense director will be called upon to present talks. Here he has an opportunity to discuss local civil defense problems and the need for understanding and support of emergency programs.
I know it's hard for most of us to imagine what an actual nuclear emergency would be like. We'd rather not think about it. But somebody's got to do the thinking and the planning, just in case the need should arise. And as remote as the possibility may seem, it is a possibility. If this country should ever become the victim of a nuclear attack, hundreds, maybe thousands of our towns would be affected. More than anything else, there would be a need, a great need, for protection against dangerous radioactive fallout. Contrary to what a lot of people may think, it is possible for our country to survive a nuclear attack if we are prepared for it with an adequate civil defense. That defense begins right here in our town, in each and every town throughout the country. We all need public fallout shelters, more public fallout shelters. We need equipment for them. We need people trained in the special skills of civil defense. We need the support of our municipal governments. Finally, and most of all, we need a plain, common sense approach to the whole problem of civil defense, instead of a lot of emotional and defeatist attitudes.
1:30 p.m. A meeting with the town engineer to examine a plan for providing emergency services in case normal power sources are not available. Local private utility companies will be checked to determine the extent of their standby facilities. Bill will also contact highway, police, and fire departments to explore means of augmenting their capabilities to meet a possible nuclear emergency or natural disaster. 2:30 p.m. A visit to a local women's club for a meeting with the club officers. The Women's Club presents a gift to the local emergency organization in the form of a check covering the cost of cots and blankets for one of the town's larger public shelters. Since federal government shelter provisions include only survival items, such as food, water, and sanitation equipment, the check for the comfort items is good news to the local civil authorities.
Oh, by the way, Mrs. Clark, do you think that some of your other club members might be willing to help us out with the presentation we're planning?
Why, yes, I'm quite sure several of us would be interested.
Good. We're going to need a fairly large place for the presentation.
I think I can help you there, Mr. Logan. My husband is manager of the movie house here in town. I'm sure he'll be able to arrange for you to use the theater.
Fine. We'll want to show a few short films, present some demonstrations, first aid, survival techniques, the kind of thing families should be concerned with. Perhaps some of your other club members or their husbands might be willing to take part if they have some special knowledge that might have some bearing on civil defense.
I majored in psychology in college, Mr. Logan, and I once did a paper on group dynamics. It wasn't directly involved with civil defense, but if there's anything that I can do...
Well, it shouldn't be hard to apply your background in the shelter situation, for instance. Some very thorough psychological studies have been done on mass behavior in shelters. I'm sure you'll be able to make a very interesting contribution to the program.
Perhaps we can run a trailer at the theater advertising the civil defense presentation.
Say, what about a telephone campaign reminding people of the date?
Good idea. I'd like to see a big turnout for this. A town this size should have more people involved in emergency planning.
Why don't we circulate a questionnaire asking people to list any special skills they may have? I know several of our members have taken courses in home nursing.
Mrs. Sanders' nephew has an amateur radio license. I'm sure he'd be willing to help out.
The Civil Defense Director will try to make use of the talents of every available person who might be able to contribute in some way to emergency preparations. Even hobbies or spare time activities might be constructively put to use in civil defense programs. A shortwave amateur radio operator could serve in the local emergency communications setup. The photographic hobbyist may be enlisted to put together a pictorial presentation of the town's civil defense activities. Bill Logan knows that civil defense is not a one-man job, and that the citizens may possess many possibilities for assistance. "4:30 p.m., a visit to a factory on the outskirts of town. When checked as part of the federal government's National Fallout Shelter Survey Program, this building met government standards as a public shelter. Bill has obtained the owner's signature on a federal license indicating the owner's consent to use the building. "5:15 p.m., on the way back to the office, a call at a firehouse to check on arrangements for a training exercise in rescue operations, which is to be held at the shopping center plaza. Test alerts and exercises must be held periodically. 5:45 p.m. Back at his office, Bill undertakes further administrative details of organizing, planning, and budgeting. In case of nuclear attack, the services of all government agencies and departments of the community might be required simultaneously. New functions not normally a part of regular government must be provided for. The Civil Defense Director, as a representative of the local government, is responsible for seeing that the town is adequately supplied and staffed to meet all emergency needs. 7 p.m. Bill takes some of his problems to his friend and boss, Mayor Rice. The clock on the wall has long since registered the end of the workday, but for men like Bill Logan, deeply involved with civil defense planning for his community, the day has no end. Bill is just one civil defense director in one American town. Those who have taken on civil defense leadership in other municipalities and rural districts throughout the nation may have different problems to cope with, depending on the needs of their communities. But all will share the basic responsibility of protection for their people during emergency. In order to continue doing his job successfully, Bill Logan and all civil defense directors must keep in mind the major objectives of the National Civil Defense Program: to provide fallout protection for all of this nation's citizens, to develop the means to give timely warning to the nation of impending attack and attack hazards, to develop effective control and direction of emergency operations at all levels of government, to establish an effective emergency communication system among governmental authorities and with the public, to develop the capability to collect, evaluate, and disseminate information on radioactive fallout, to develop and operate systems whereby the nature and extent of damage resulting from enemy attack can be evaluated. Within the framework of these objectives, the local civil defense director functions as staff coordinator for his community's emergency planning and operations. The civil defense job is a big one, often frustrating, sometimes rewarding. It's a job that comes with the realities of our time, a challenge that can be met through civil defense leaders who understand the threat and have the ability to prepare their communities
to meet it.
Men have always sought defense against a common enemy by uniting their resources and ingenuity. Even in the very earliest times, the concept of a civil defense was deeply rooted in the anxieties of the community over the terrors of the day. Walls around the cities of old were attempts to safeguard the civilian population from enemy onslaught. To inhabitants of the medieval community, the catapult and the ballista were terrifying weapons, and the only possible defense against them was stronger and higher walls. In our own pioneer days, civilian communities developed within the protecting walls of the stockade. Today, no barricade is high enough or strong enough to protect us from a possible onslaught of weapons that dwarf any in history in their destructive potential. To reduce the effectiveness of these weapons, should they ever be used in enemy attack on our nation, a civil defense effort that challenges our ingenuity and resourcefulness is necessary. In the United States, responsibility for civil defense planning at the federal level is lodged within the Department of Defense. The development of civil defense programs is a joint responsibility shared by the federal, state, and local governments. This film will consider civil defense on the local government level. Hometown, USA. A church. A school. A factory. An office building. Today, these and other structures bear a marking on which the survival of our country might well depend. Shelter, protection from dangerous radioactive fallout, the inevitable result of nuclear warfare. To provide enough shelter space for the community is the first and foremost consideration of local civil defense planning. The National Fallout Shelter Program has as its goal a shelter space for every man, woman, and child in the United States. In cities and towns throughout the country, public shelters have been surveyed, marked, and provisioned in a continuous program of shelter expansion. With availability of shelter protection for its citizens, the prime local civil defense responsibility is that each municipality or rural district must organize its local existing government agencies for emergency operations to meet the threat of enemy attack or natural disaster. This is the objective of civil defense planning. All over the nation, local government officials meet periodically to discuss civil defense emergency measures. The chief executive or governing body of the locality is responsible for civil defense protection for that community. Appointed by the mayor or appropriate town or county officials, the civil defense director acts as staff man, coordinating the various emergency activities. The logistics of survival are complex and varied. They depend on technological knowledge, which has developed at an incredible pace, spurred on by the unique dangers of our time. Survival materials and equipment are researched, engineered, and fabricated. However, craftsmanship alone will not do the civil defense job. This can only be accomplished by firmly organized emergency skills and an awareness by each local government official of what his department can do to meet civil defense needs.
Let's hear first from our Chief of Police, Mr. Condon. Harry?
The police function in civil defense
is a natural expansion of our routine assignment of protection and keeping law and order. In our headquarters, existing facilities for police purposes can be quickly and effectively put to use in a national emergency or natural disaster type situation. Our siren warning system would function in emergency situations. Communication facilities linking police headquarters to key points in the community will be used in civil defense planning and operations. In the handling of crowds, national emergency would add a considerable burden, particularly in the critical movement to shelter period. This would be a police responsibility, and we carry on training and planning programs to meet civil defense needs in this area.
Mr. Mayor, in the sanitation department, our emergency assignment might include helping with decontamination. Contamination is caused by radioactive fallout material settling after a nuclear explosion. Decontamination of buildings and streets and equipment might be necessary before an area could be used for its intended purpose. Much radioactive fallout can be removed. Methods include hosing down the area with water or sweeping.
Gentlemen, essential to the disaster situation, whether natural or man-made, is a rescue capability, often the responsibility of the fire department. In any large-scale emergency, we would have to face the fact that numbers of people might be trapped in wreckage. In this town, we have our own rescue vehicle, equipped to handle a variety of disaster situations. The town paid for part of the cost of the vehicle, and the federal government contributed the rest as part of its program of providing funds for certain approved civil defense equipment.
Thank you, Chief. Public Works.
Mr. Mayor, our Public Works Department has the emergency assignment of keeping the town's facilities operating as normally as possible. Among other functions, we work with the town's engineering personnel and the utility companies in developing plans for standby services if this should become necessary. Public Works trucks used in road maintenance and for other purposes might be called into service for emergency transportation needs.
Thank you. And now, gentlemen, our information officer.
Public information is a vital element in civil defense operations. Now, in time of emergency, people have a great need to know what is happening. Now, my job is to see that the public is provided with survival information through every possible channel of communication.
As your civil defense director, I must stress the importance of being fully efficient in times of emergency. First, a shelter must be manned by efficient personnel who can provide leadership within the shelter. One of our shelter manager instructors has just come back from taking a course at a federal civil defense school. He's going to set up a training program here in town for shelter managers. Shelters should be adequately stocked with food, water, radiological, medical, and sanitation equipment. The federal government provides this survival support for licensed shelters. But it's up to us in local government to come up with any additional items, such as cots, chairs, or blankets, special foods, and medications.
Gentlemen, an item of vital concern. All of our local government civil defense activities may be conditioned by the radiological situation. Like the fallout shelter program itself, the radiological defense program is a product of the nuclear age. Now, our function in the time of enemy attack would be an analysis and evaluation of the fallout radiation data and the providing of technical guidance in this area. Many of the people assigned to emergency tasks, such as firemen and policemen, are also trained in radiological monitoring. Our training situation gives us experience with sample radiological materials in controlled exercises.
In all of our emergency operations, the big need is for trained personnel. But most important of all, we need qualified instructors. The civil defense schools operated by the federal government provide a means of instructor training, and each municipality or rural community should see to it that training courses are set up in such vital civil defense subjects as shelter management, planning and operations, and radiological monitoring.
A meeting of skills and capabilities, plans for a pool of manpower and equipment with one goal: emergency protection for members of our family, for friends, for neighbors. Other talents and skills, too, will be brought into the civil defense picture by an enterprising local government. The clergyman, the welfare worker, the administrator, the merchant, all can assist in the emergency preparations. The heart of local civil defense operation is an emergency operating center which must coordinate emergency activities from a protected area. This town is one of many in the United States which is developing an effective civil defense program. Its emergency operating center is located in the basement of the municipal building. In time of disaster, the emergency operating center would be staffed with personnel assigned to the various civil defense functions. Information as to conditions outside would be received here and plotted on a map of the area indicating the disposition of the town's existing resources. From this chart, the Civil Defense Director could tell at a glance what must be committed to any particular area. Markers are coded to designate fire, police, ambulance, rescue, or other resources required in the distress area. At the administration desk, the Civil Defense Director takes charge of the activities. Vital to the Emergency Operating Center is a communications capability that links the center with key municipal facilities, radio stations, and county officials. Radio and telephone provide a network for the exchange of important emergency data. A potential source of communications for civil defense emergency is amateur radio activity. In many communities, ham operators are licensed to tie in their facilities with a civil defense network. Communications apparatus is tested periodically, with each municipality usually reporting to county or state control centers. A ready communications capability is invaluable in the disaster situation. When conditions permit, a mobile communications van may be used as a control center. Civil defense planning calls for an augmented communications network equipped to cope with a variety of critical needs. Supplementing the work of existing local government, which has inherent responsibility in emergency, may be the Red Cross, traditionally serving in disaster situations. Help may also be available from military personnel in the local community, wherever this would not interfere with the primary armed. Local business and industry are essential in providing the required shelter space. Federal government surveys approved portions of thousands of buildings throughout the nation as fallout shelters. Each building must be licensed with the owner's signature indicating his approval for its use as a public shelter. This is the responsibility of local government. The shelter markings on the buildings in our cities and towns are symbols of an ever-expanding civil defense effort. Its success, perhaps the survival of our nation, will depend on how well each community organizes for and meets its emergency responsibilities. No one can predict whether this nation will ever be the victim of enemy attack. Nor do we know when or where natural disaster may strike. If and when these should occur, we must be ready to meet them. We will be ready only if the full potential of civil defense is understood and acted upon by the federal and state governments, and especially by local government and all persons charged with community responsibility. Local government can and must meet the challenge of the nuclear age. Communities all over the United States share a common problem and a common responsibility to develop within their existing local governments an expanded capability for the protection of their citizens in time of emergency.
So we backed up our argument with atoms. And when we moved into Japan a month or so later, we saw firsthand that we'd been mighty convincing. We saw a lot of this, and some of this. Sort of gave a guy the shakes. That is, until he... What happened? Well, that got the idea across.
I'll have this gizmo fixed in a second.
Then put on something easier to take. A rootin' tootin' Western, with men fighting it out the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, none of that atom business. Why not? It's our business. You saw what happened in Japan. What if it happened here? What would you men do?
Well, that's easy. I'd go see a tailor.
Tailor?
Sure, have my uniforms altered. Have them cut to let my wings out. All God's children's got 'em, you know. I'd take music lessons. On the harp, naturally.
Well, Nah, that wouldn't do. I think I'd... You tell us.
Okay. Come on. Learn and live. Target for today. This doesn't represent any place in particular. It's typical, and it's important. For shipping, by both water and by rail. For factories. For its big business. It's the kind of a city an enemy would want to knock out. A spot where he might drop an egg, an atomic egg.
What an omelet that'd make. Yeah, with us in it, maybe.
But not necessarily. Look, I won't kid you about the A-bomb. I've seen what it can do in Japan, Bikini, and Eniwetok. It's deadly. It's like a woman.
That I'd have to see.
I mean, never underestimate its power. Don't lose your head, use it. Figure that an atomic bomb dropped on a large modern city like this might kill 50,000 people. That figure might be cut down considerably if folks were properly schooled in individual protection. Handle yourself right and you've got a good chance of coming through. Do the wrong things and you've got a future like an ice cube in a hot toddy. Get panicky and get hurt. Forget about such things as the proper outfits to wear. Light, loose clothes to protect you against flash heat. The enemy was thoughtless. He didn't send you a formal announcement of the big blowout. And you're no quick change artist. Suppose you're taken by surprise. And while we're supposing, let's go all the way. Figure that this is the real article, not just a model. And you're there. Okay, you're in this town and you're on it. Making the best of those 3 rights they can't take away from you. You're enjoying life. You're enjoying liberty. You're pursuing happiness, whatever shape it comes in. When... The other guy's around and he means business, so get going. Remember, you're off base. You've just got time to save yourself. Drop whatever you're doing. Find the nearest hole and make like a mole. A subway's okay. Stay out of flimsy buildings. They give bad protection. A basement's fine, preferably under a solid, well-constructed building. And the safest positions are near strong supporting columns or next to the walls, protected from falling bricks and 2x4s. If there's no underground shelter handy, pick a room in a good building close to the ground. It ought to be airtight and light-proof as possible, with the doors shut, windows closed, and blinds drawn. Back in 1940, London survived a terrific blasting from the Nazi bombers. And one of the reasons was that folks did just what I'm telling you now. It was pretty crowded down in those shelters. There wasn't much fresh air. There was more of it up above. But fresh air isn't important. Not unless you're still breathing. Do what those people did, and you're on the right track. World War II bombs were cream puffs compared to what you may be up against. But the defensive measures are about the same. The blast of an ordinary bomb kills and destroys. An A-bomb's kick is much worse. The old horse and buggy bomb was hot stuff. The A-bomb is hotter, so when you get the warning, don't stop to ask what's cooking. It might be you. The big idea, if you've got time enough to swing it, is to shield yourself by thick, strong, heavy material like reinforced concrete from the A-bomb's blast. And heat. Do that, and you'll also be protecting your hide from its radiations. A lot of people, including you men fairly new to the service, got the notion that radiations are like the double whammy turned on by Evil Eye Flegel, the comic strip character. Irresistible, I mean. Well, you're wrong. They're mighty penetrating and deadly, but they can be stopped. Authorities know exactly what it takes. Just what thickness of steel, concrete, or wood will do the trick. But you're no authority. Even if you were, you haven't got your tape measure or calipers with you. Even if you had them, you wouldn't have time to use them. You're just a guy trying to get along. And fast. A heavy wall between you and the source of the blast will cut off most of the radiation barrage. But you don't know where the source will be. And radiations can scatter and bounce off the air the way a basketball bounces off the backboard. What you want, then, is a spot that shields you above and all around. That's if you can find it without wasting time. Comfortable?
Not me. I've been figuring I got caught away from any of the shelters. Out in the open. So what do? Play dead?
Right. Or maybe you will be. If there was a ditch handy, you'd flop in it. But there isn't. So hit the dirt, like men did in World War II. Lie flat, face down. Cover the exposed parts of your body. The bomb's flash heat is rugged. Don't get curious and look around. Its light can blind you temporarily. You all with me? Fine. Now we're about as ready as we can be for the fireworks. Bombs away. Just one. I want you to visualize what would happen if the enemy somehow slipped it through our defenses. That it's about as powerful as the ones we used in Japan. And that he wants it to explode about 2,000 feet above the city. Right about here. spot directly below the blast, which we call ground zero, is just that, a goose egg. A lot of nothing. And out to a mile or more, the destruction's terrific, with only a few strong structures surviving. Damage naturally peters out from ground zero. But all big explosions are affected by obstacles such as hills. Behind a hill may be a building that came through okay, while further out in the open will be another that went to pieces. The fires started don't exactly follow the rule book either. In here you might get a frying pan, and back here a fire.
I've got a very messy picture.
Me too. And where do we fit into this? You'd be all right if you found a good spot. Underground and reinforced concrete shelters give good protection close to ground zero.
Yeah, but what about me? I'm the guy caught out in the open, stretched across Mother Earth's lap. How am I doing?
If you were near ground zero, within 3/4 of a mile from it and completely exposed, you'd be a dead duck, a roasted duck. And you'd also get a fatal dose of radiation. So what? Any weapon, even a knotted club, might kill you if you're unlucky enough to be in the wrong place. A safe might fall on your head accidentally. You particular how it happens? But if you were far enough away, you'd come through in good shape. And you'd be over the hump. So far as you're concerned, the bomb shot its big wad of blast, heat, and immediate radiation. It goes on sending out rays and particles, but they're rising harmlessly. In about 2 minutes after the explosion, the area underneath the burst will be free from dangerous radiation, and you can enter it. You've probably got military duties to perform. There's a lot of relief, rescue, and policing work to be done. So after waiting a couple of minutes, get moving. Okay, we survived that one. Now let's put ourselves on the spot again. Use our heads and our imaginations a bit more. Because maybe the enemy decides to set off a submarine bomb. Maybe he sneaked it into the harbor on an innocent-looking freighter and planted it underwater. Authorities figured it'd have to be plenty deep for the bomb to do its worst. We're going to suppose it's deep enough. Now, chances are you wouldn't get any warning about this baby. You'd sure see it, though. You wouldn't worry about being blasted or burned by a submarine explosion. But watch out for the fog and mist. It's radioactive, packed with poison, and it moves fast. If you saw it advancing on you a mile away, you'd have about 30 seconds to take cover. Make for the nearest entrance, but be orderly about it. That fog has contaminated everything it touched with radioactive matter, which we'll call hot stuff, although it hasn't anything to do with its temperature. Don't be in a hurry to leave your shelter. Wait till the fog disappears. Then wait a bit longer if you can. It cools off a lot the first few minutes after the blast. Gets less dangerous. It'd be best to wait until the radiological defense men come around to tell you what to do. But if you've got to go, go the right way. Your handkerchief makes a pretty fair filter. Breathe through it. Be quick or be sick. The faster you pass through a contaminated place, the less you expose yourself to radioactive poisoning. Move crosswind as much as possible. Take advantage of cover, of passageways protected from contamination. Don't collect souvenirs like watches and coins. They may be hot. You've gotten out of the danger zone. Your head's in its usual place, your skin still fits. You've got your normal cord of arms and legs. Souvenirs, you'll get some real pleasures out of. Sooner or later, you'll run into the radiological defense monitors. They're the detectives of this atomic business. With their instruments, they examine everything for radiation contamination, including you. If your uniforms are hot, they'll end up same as clothes after a skirmish with a skunk. They'll go to the laundry if they're not too hot. Or if they're too badly contaminated, they'll be buried or dumped at sea. And you'll give yourself the soap and water treatment to remove any radioactive stuff you might have collected. From then on, you'll watch your step. First, report to the nearest military officer or organization for instructions. As soon as they tell you to, rejoin your own organization. Your commander, on the advice of the radiological defense people, will tell you which areas are safe to enter and which aren't. They'll also advise them on the food you eat and the water you drink. You'll be careful about getting radioactive material inside you. You can get there by breathing dust, eating, or through breaks in the skin. You'll be told how to prevent overexposure to the stuff.
How much of it can a guy stand?
How much whiskey will it take to knock a guy in his ear?
Why, that depends.
It sure does. But the defense people can tell you what the safe limits are. And they'll keep checking in order to determine those limits. The odds on you surviving an A-blast depend a lot on you.
Okay, Sarge?
Right. Get panicky or fat-headed and you'll probably have a new title. The late John Doe. Which isn't exactly a promotion. Use your think tank. Follow the rules, and you might live to look it over. That's the picture, men.